Hey, and welcome to another Podcast Valley Sunday. I am one of your hosts, Chris Paco.
And I'm your other host, Jeff Cameron.
How's it going, Jeff?
Super sweet. How about you?
It is going fantastic.
Really? Why is that, Paco?
I'll let you in. I was gonna start this show off by talking about the Mickey Dolenz tour, and how if any of our listeners were going at this tour, they're selling the BluRay box set that was out of stock, apparently. And I guess they found some in the back of Mike's garage or something, and they were selling them on tour for this Mickey tour. So if any of our listeners were going to shows, I was going to throw out there like, hey, I'll if you could pick one up for me, I'll send you the money and you send it to me. I'll pay for shipping and all that.
Yeah, because the closest shows were like a time zone away for both of us.
Yeah, they're really far away. And it would have ended up costing like almost $1,000 to get there and back, plus the box set. Yeah. So as we were getting ready for this show, I was having some microphone issues. And then Jeff sent me a thing saying, hey, there's something on Monkees Instagram that might be interesting to you. I went and checked it out, and the Monkees have put the box set back up for sale on their website, as well as Rhino's website. So if you missed out on the first time, like me, you can now pick it up. And we delayed starting the show just so I could make sure I ordered it and got my confirmation. And I did. Honestly, I'm going to take a minute here. You don't know how happy I am. I thought like if I did get to one of these Dolan shows and I got to get the box set, people would see me like weeping, like holding on to it and weeping, like a lock of Paul McCartney's hair at Ed Sullivan or something. But it was honestly a huge kick in the pants when it got taken, when it was out of stock, because like I couldn't swing it.
Let's not focus on that, Paco. Let's focus on how you feel now.
That's what I was getting to. Like I was so sad because then all of a sudden I had the money and I went to buy it and it was out of stock. And I was like, what? I was so devastated. Then this happened and I heard it was on for sale. And I actually wrote to Andrew Sandoval and was like, hey, is it true that these box sets are on sale? And he wrote back saying like, yeah, they're on sale at these shows. And I was like, oh my God, how do I get my hands on it? But now I'm assuming it's already in the mail, like from 6 minutes ago when I ordered it. I assume they've already put it in the mail and it's on its way to me.
Okay, a couple of things. First of all, how cool is it that Andrew Sandoval wrote you back?
Very cool, man. I thought that was
pretty promptly. He's kind of a busy dude at this time.
Yeah. And it was nice because it wasn't just me being like, hey, man, like say hey to Mickey for me. Like you don't expect to hear back from that. It was like an actual question that I had.
Yeah. And folks, this is for real. This really did just happen like minutes ago.
Yeah. Like I'm freaking out. I'm so excited to get this box set. Like you don't even understand. Like
when you get that box set, might you skip right up to episode 52?
I might do that. You know what I did actually? I'll confess this. In order to get this box set, I had to sell my soul to the devil.
Paco!
And I only learned to do that through Peter Tork from this week's episode, The Devil and Peter Tork. Worth it so far. There's no downsides yet, so.
But the ramifications in Act 2. Oh, man.
Yeah. It'll come to me. It'll only be like Betamax or something.
Oh, no.
It won't be Blu-rays. Somehow I'll get burned.
It's Partridge Family. That's what happens to you.
Yeah.
In the nightmare scenario.
So this week's episode, as we say, number 52, The Devil and Peter Tork, directed by our main man, James Frawley, written by Robert Kaufman, Gerald Gardner, and our old buddy D. Caruso.
You gotta be kidding me.
He shows back. Of course, it's about the devil being angry. D. Caruso showing up.
Wait a second. Who's at the door?
Oh,
sounds like someone's at the Podcast Valley door.
You thought you got rid of me? Here I am. The day you get your box set, D. Caruso shows up. Maybe that'll change your tune, pal.
Oh my God. Similar to this episode. They're like pulling out all the stops.
Yeah. Must be Sweeps Week.
Podcast. Yeah, it must be.
You gonna tell him when it originally aired, you hack? Oh, sorry, God. D. Jeez. Okay. Originally aired February 5th, 1968.
He's got all your moves memorized, Paco.
All right, I'm out of here. Do better this time.
Okay. Thanks, D.
Thank you, D. Oh, it's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Oh, man.
So anyway, the episode, it opens up. Peter's at a pawn shop, And Monty Landis appears. Good to have him back again.
Yeah, been a minute.
And he asks Peter if he's buying or selling. And he tells him that he's just browsing. And Landis says that maybe by the end of the day, he'll be doing both. And then when he puts his hand on Peter's shoulder and takes it off, he leaves like a burn mark on on his shirt. Special effects. They're amazing. They're coming out. So Peter comments on all the groovy instruments that he has. And Landis tells him that they all belong to musicians who have fallen on bad times.
Oh, boy.
Which is what most pawn shops are. Everything in there is someone fell on bad times. If it's something cool, it's like, oh, what a shame. Every time I see something rad at a pawn shop.
Yeah, this is still the first decade or so of rock and roll. So pawn shop folks are learning, hey, it's going to be like 80% of our business right here, thanks to those Liverpudlian mop tops.
Late 60s, for sure, man. Everyone who bought guitars when the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan, they're now like, oh, I'm going to college now. I don't need this anymore. But now all the hippies who are coming up are like, sweet, a guitar for $5.
Yep.
So Peter asks why they didn't come back to claim them. And Landis says,
you know how musicians are. Here today, gone tomorrow.
Ooh.
Which is, now it's kind of like, ooh, that's kind of a deep thing. But in 68, there hadn't been a lot of rock and roll casualties yet. So it was more funny than it is now.
Isn't that a line from Pet Sounds?
Yeah. You're under arrest.
That wasn't a drop, folks. That was a live taste of Paco doing some deep cut outtake heroes and villains.
You're under arrest.
So anyone who knew that, drink up. So Peter says that he's a musician, and Landis tells him to look around, and Peter spots a harp of all goddamn things. And so Peter really digs on the harp, and he says that he loves it. And Landis says that he must mean that he needs or desires it, because no one truly loves anything anymore. But Peter says that he loves it, but he doesn't have any money. And Landis says, what a pity. And he just covers it back up with the sheet. Ooh. And it's weird you put it under a sheet at the pawn shop. You, like, show that thing off.
You keep the dust off of it. Harp demand has gone down a bit.
I guess.
Since the aforementioned Liverpudlian mop tops.
So then Peter says he'd give anything for it. And Landis is all schemy and shifty. And he snaps his fingers and a contract appears in his hand. More special effects.
Amazing.
And he tells Peter to sign right here, and then the harp is his. So he does, and he takes the harp. And then he doesn't even question it. You'd think maybe just a little bit, you might say, what am I signing?
Nope.
But nope, just scrolls down to the I agree and hits it.
This is why Mike isn't playing this role in this episode.
Yeah, if Mike was with him, this would have never happened.
No, his wife's Peter, and he's by himself.
Yeah, exactly. So once Peter's gone, Landis picks up a red telephone that has a sign that says hotline on it. And he says into the phone,
this is himself. Make a reservation for one. I've just purchased the soul of a Mr. Peter Tork.
And then we cut to Peter walking down the street carrying this enormous harp. And a voiceover says,
soul. Some say it's a man's heart or spirit. Certainly without it, we cannot survive. For no man can live without love.
Interesting.
All right.
Yeah, whatever. Then we hit the intro.
Just a shade under 2 minutes in, which is about right.
Yeah, it lays down everything you need to know about
it. It lays down everything, yes. It gets a lot going.
I wonder if in the 60s, late 60s, seeing some hippie walking down the street in California carrying a harp is really like that weird, or if it's like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Well, also, Peter Tork is one of the most famous people around at the time. So there's Tork with a harp.
Yeah, I'm even in like the MCU, like people just seeing him like an out of work musician just carrying a harp. They're like, yeah, well, that also might be why you're out of work. He decided to go with the harp.
My God.
So we come back to a mystical version of the theme, which is awesome.
Nice.
And Mike and Peter are admiring the harp, and Mike is wearing the wool hat again. And he points out that the harp is beautiful and can make beautiful music, but also says that Peter can't play the harp. Mickey tells Peter that he should take it back, and then he and Davey just leave. They just, like, yeah, you should take that. And then they just split from the pad.
They split. And you'll notice, similar to the wool hat reappearing, Mickey's got his early 67 hair back.
Yeah, and there's a laugh track.
Ooh.
Yeah. So there's a lot of throwback or callbacks in this episode.
Interesting.
So Peter agrees that he can't play it, and Mike says that he'd be better off if he just took it back. And suddenly there's a puff of smoke, and Landis is standing in the room. And Mike asks who he is, and Peter says that he's Mr. Zero, and that he's the guy who sold him the harp. No one questions how he appeared. Mike just wants to know his name. Zero asks why Peter needs Mike around now that he has his harp. And Mike says that he does odd jobs around, like sweeping up. And then Zero snaps his fingers, and a broom appears in Mike's hand. And Zero says that Peter doesn't need people like Mike around anymore because he can make Peter famous. And then Mike just splits. He's like, okay, you don't need me around anymore. Zero tells Peter that he can play the harp, and he tells him to play. And Peter starts to play, and it's great.
Play, Peter.
So Zero again tells Peter that he can make him famous, and then he disappears. Then Mike and Mickey walk back in and ask Peter how he learned to play the harp so fast. And he says that Mr. Zero taught him, but Zero's obviously gone. And Zero didn't teach him anything. Let's be honest here. So Davey comes in, and he says that he thought they were getting rid of that thing because it's too big. Davey doesn't like big things. Anything bigger than him, he's not a fan of. No upright basses, no harps.
Anything that might take him out if it fell out of the monkey mobile. Yeah, he's not interested.
Yeah, no didgeridoos, no huge bassoons. You never see those in the Monkees. Man, didgeridoo, more like didgeridoo, man, if you know what I mean. It's taller than me. How do you even play that thing? Can't even climb it. Gonna use it as a fireman's pole, man. Except for that thing on the bottom. Catch me in the knickers, you know, man. Jeez.
And see. Perfect.
Thank you, Davey. And so Peter shows him that he can play the harp, and then Davey instantly changes his tune and loves the harp. And so Peter asks if he can work it into the act, and Mickey turns into a newspaper boy.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Rock and roll group gains fame and fortune by introducing harp in the act.
Then the phone rings, and Mike says that there's no such thing as an overnight success. And when he answers the phone, the guy says that he's heard that they have a harp act and that they're going to be an overnight success. Mike hangs up the phone, and Mickey asks what's up.
We're going to be an overnight success.
Yeah, he's good at giving messages, like to a T. So we cut to a train, and then an arena filled with screaming kids, and a newspaper headline that reads, Monkees intro harp. And the other headlines on the paper are, Kenya embarrassed by 5 African rhinos, and post office gets advice on hiring of youths. Interesting. And so then there's live shots of the Monkees playing over Peter playing the harp. Another headline that says, Monkees harp a hit. And the other 2 headlines are the same headlines from the other one, just so you know.
And I like how they're splicing in the concert footage of them, you know.
Exactly, yeah.
With Pete playing the harp. But they're taking over the world with this. The crowd's going wild for the harp.
Yeah, and then the third headline says, Monkey harp is happening. So that's nice. So back at the pad, Peter's still playing the harp, and the other guys are going through the fan mail, which is a huge stack of fan mail. And Mr. Zero shows back up in a flash of smoke.
Who's that? Is that that Zero guy?
It's Smokey the Bear.
And Zero asks if Peter is pleased, and Peter says that he loves playing the harp and making people happy. And Zero says there's one piece of business to discuss, and he snaps his fingers, and the contract appears. And Davey says...
Oh, see? A little bit of everything in this one,
There is. Mike says that he knew there had to be a hitch, and approaches Zero and reads the contract and realizes that it's a contract with the devil.
I'm so glad I don't have to introduce myself.
Mike tells Peter that he sold his soul to the devil, and Peter says that he doesn't believe in devils. And Zero says that's why he's so interesting. Innocence is at a premium. So Mickey protests and says that he's putting them on, and Zero snaps his fingers, and Mickey's chair falls apart. And then Davey's shirt disappears, and then Mike is holding the broom again. That seems to be Mike's go-to thing. He has to hold a broom.
Devil or not, he's a rotten house guest.
Okay, seriously. Your Monkees episode bingo card is filling right up. You got Mickey and the breaking furniture. You got shirtless Davy Jones. There's a lot of stuff happening here.
Yeah, they're squishing it all in. Zero tells Peter that his soul must be turned over by midnight, and Davy goes, oh, again.
He's really trying to make it a thing.
He really is. And then Mike says that it's only 8 o'clock, and Zero tells him that he's just trying to beat traffic. So Mike says that Peter wants his 4 hours, and Zero says he can have them, but he'll be back at midnight to get Peter's soul. And he snaps his fingers and everything goes back to normal and he disappears. The boys try to comfort Peter, but he tells them that he's scared and he doesn't want to go too. And as he says hell, there's a loud thunder crash. And we see Zero in hell surrounded by like hot devil women. And not doing a good job at making hell look really bad. It's like, it looks nice and warm. There's a bunch of girls, like devil girls dressed in bathing suits, all surrounding him. It's like, man.
Excellent observation, Paul.
Yeah. I guess he is the head honcho, though, in hell. Like, if I show up, the devil girls aren't going to ditch him to hang out with me. You know. But anyway, this leads us to a very early Monkees romp with the song Salesman.
Yeah.
I was really surprised how quickly this happened in the episode. Like, we're not even to the first commercial break, and we've already got a romp going. But it's to Salesman, which is cool, and it kind of goes with the theme of the episode.
Absolutely, it fits. And it's also a Pisces song, so this came out, they shot this episode before they even recorded Headquarters, and now they've put a song in here that's on a record that I think just came out, and like, you can tell, like, the footage of Mike, quote-unquote, singing Salesman. I think he's singing something else, and they just found some syllables. And he's got the sunglasses on where it sort of matches up.
Yeah, because I thought, well, they're in the Rainbow Room, but they're doing Salesman. Like, that's pretty interesting. So throughout the romp, the boys wander into hell. A close-up of Zero's mouth, the disco ball and flames going on. The devil girls are dancing in front of the boys and, like, trying to lure them in.
Your blasé delivery of, so the boys wander into hell.
Yeah.
It sort of adds to like the not threatening nature of hell.
Yeah. So they bring Peter right up to Zero, who tells Peter to kneel, and he does, but the boys grab him and try to take him away. We see Mike singing in the Rainbow Room with his blue suit and the blue tinted glasses. Awesome.
Yes.
The boys are all backing up in hell and bump into each other and all get scared. Classic.
Yeah.
Then the devil girls show up and they're trying to stab them with these pitchforks, and that goes on for quite a while, to be honest. Zero's laughing. The boys are dressed up like devils themselves in like red satin outfits with little hoods and devil horns on them. Just makes them look more adorable than threatening. The devil boys are dancing with the devil girls. Zero is there kind of like hypnotizing the boys while dancing. Another devilish girl in like lingerie walks past with a tray and a drink. And Peter and Davey are just consumed by her. And then we fast motion of the guys being chased by Zero. The boys are on treadmills. Whole lot of running around. Zero is controlling on the treadmills. And a lot of
classic rompery. If you ask me.
Yeah. And then it ends with like a lot of like fast cuts of the boys, the girls, and Zero. And then that takes us out of the romp. So back at the Monkees pad, Mike says,
"That's what it's all about."
And Davey says,
"Yeah, it's pretty scary."
And Mickey says,
You know what's even more scary?
What?
You can't say on television.
and it's very, again, at the time, I bet you that was kind of not cutting edge, but like, oh man, like they're actually saying it and it has to get bleeped out.
Yeah.
And again, shows how much has changed, I guess, on television too, because that's not anything you'd worry about nowadays.
For real.
But it is something that they had to deal with then. So after the commercial break, the boys are gathered and Mike is saying that they have to remember that they're dealing with a cool, diabolical mind. And Peter says, "Thank you."
I'm talking about the devil. Oh.
Mickey tells him not to worry, but he's got a wooden stake. And as soon as he comes in the door, he's going to stab him. But as he makes the motion, Zero shows up and the stake turns into a feather, and Mickey just tickles the devil's nose. The Zero asks Peter if he's ready, and the boy says that he can't do it now. He's got clothes at the cleaners, and he has to take care of that. Or he's got a letter to write to his mother, or he has a million things to do, and can't he do it tomorrow? And the Mike's heard that due to lack of interest, tomorrow has been canceled, so it'll have to be the next day.
Oh, jeez.
So Zero's having none of it, and he tells Peter that he'll like it down below. And Peter asks about the fires, and Zero tells him that he won't burn. He'll just feel a sense of depression.
Oh, man.
So Davey stops him and asks if he can make a deal with the devil to take him instead of Peter. What a good friend Davey is, hopping in there, taking the bullet for Peter.
Well, you saw the birds down there.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, he's just looking out for himself. But Zero says that it's in that his contract is with Peter, and then they get into a tug of war with Peter, pulling him back and forth. And Peter asks if they can flip a coin, and he'll go with the winner. Mike says that they really can't stop him if they have a contract. but says he doesn't think that the contract is legal and wants to take Zero to court. Zero protests and asks why young people can't just deal with the fact that there's a devil and be done with it. But there's 10 minutes left, so he'll convene a court, and he claps his hands, and suddenly they're in a court of some kind of persuasion or something. So Zero introduces the judge, who's played by Billy Beck, and the judge yells, "Guilty!" And Zero says that he's known as the hanging judge. Hang him! I feel like this judge doesn't care about the due process.
Nope.
And so the jury comes in, and they're made up of guilty men from Devil's Island, and they start to chant, also not a good sign for Peter.
No.
So Zero introduces the first witness, Billy the Kid, who's played by Peter Cannon. And what's he got to witness? What did Billy the Kid witness out of any of this? Was he at one of the concerts at the harp shows? He's a big fan. And so Billy the Kid appears, and he starts to shoot everything up. Guns show up in the episode, of course.
And gavels. In the same frame, we have a super MCU bingo, folks.
This episode might have the most reoccurring Monkees stuff in it than any episode. We'll have to check it out for the award show.
For real, there's a lot of monkey business, shall we say.
So Zero asks Billy if they have a contract and if Zero made him the most famous gunslinger ever. And Billy says they sure did, and he'll shoot anyone who says anything different. The boys argue about who will cross-examine Billy, and they say Oddfinger will have to do it, and Mike has the odd finger. Although he feels like his fingers aren't that odd.
I gotta go talk to Billy Pooh here, huh?
So Mike says, "Well, Mr. Kid," and Billy points a gun at Mike. Mike asks him if Zero promised to make him the most famous gunslinger, and Billy says that's right. And Mike agrees and goes back to sit down, and then Mickey protests. Mike says there's no reason to antagonize the jury. And Zero asks if they should close the case, but Mickey stands up and insists that Zero calls another witness. The judge asks why, and Mickey says,
On the grounds that television show's not over.
Oh.
Classic Caruso.
See you later, fourth wall.
Yeah. I was meta before meta was a thing. So Zero calls Blackbeard the pirate, and then he appears. And this is Ted DeCorsia, plays Blackbeard. Uh-huh. And he says, "Yo ho ho and a bottle of rum. I smell the blood of an Englishman." And Davey says,
That's me.
And then he gets up. So hat trick for Davey. Oos.
3 oohs.
Amazing.
Yep.
So Blackbeard asks Davey's name and offers him some rum and talks about being on the high sea and starts swaying back and forth and back and forth. And then the picture turns green and Davey gets sick with the swelling and goes back to the table. And Mickey says that they'll get him on the next witness. It's also, he should have said he was Davy Jones, because Blackbeard might have been like, Davy Jones, you know what I mean? Because of Davy Jones' locker. But
Missed opportunity there, D.
I don't write that hack shit. The low-hanging fruit. Okay, D, calm down.
We got to close that window.
Yeah. I feel if anyone has started listening to the podcast recently, they're like, what is happening over there? Why is D. Caruso so angry?
There's nothing on his Wikipedia page about being such a dick.
Zero calls Attila the Hun, who's played by Lee Kolima. And Mike hypes up Mickey and he gets him to go talk to the Hun. So Mickey asks him when he had the agreement with Zero. And then they start speaking some language that sounds like Chinese or Japanese, but Attila Hun was actually Hungarian, so I don't know what they're speaking. And then they get into a big argument, and Mike yells something, and Attila bows and walks away.
What'd you say? I don't know.
So Zero says that the prosecution rests, and Mickey says that the defense rests as well, and then puts a pillow on his face. Caruso.
Oh boy.
Comedy gold. And then Mike says that the defense would like to call its first witness, Mr. Zero. And Zero takes the stand, all too happily, because he thinks he has this in the bag. And Davey asks him to put his hand on the Bible, and Zero asks if he's serious. So Mickey says that they can just watch a movie of the book. No, so Mickey says they can just watch a movie of the book, and Zero tells him that he was in that movie in the garden scene. He played the snake.
Oh,
Whew, hilarious. Zero's like Kato Kalin on the stand, just being a dick, making people laugh. So Mike takes over. He asks what Zero presents as evidence, and he says the contract. And he says that he allowed Peter to play the harp in exchange for his soul. And then we go, very special Monkees here. And Mike says that the contract is null and void because it didn't give Peter anything in return for his soul. And Zero says that he gave Peter fame and fortune. But Mike says that Peter didn't want that. He just wanted to play the harp. Zero says that he gave Peter the ability to play the harp in exchange for his soul. And Peter says very deeply,
You know, it was almost worth it.
So Mike says that Zero didn't give him the ability to play the harp. Peter loved the harp, and he loved the music, and that was inside of him all along, and Zero had nothing to do with that at all. Zero laughs at him, and Mike says that if you love music, then you can play music. No one is tone deaf. All it takes is just love.
Because, baby, in the final analysis, love is power. That's where the power's at.
Awesome.
Man, that maybe Caruso came in to punch that up. I think he's a softie. The boys are all touched, but the devil just laughs at him. And he takes Peter's ability to play the harp away and tells Peter to try to play it now. Mike tells Peter to play, but he says he can't. Mike asks if he had heard what he just said. The power is inside Peter. No one can take it away or give it to him. It's a very touching scene, actually. It really is kind of nice. And so Peter sits down at the harp and he plays I Want to Be Free. And he plays it beautifully, a nice harp version of I Want to Be Free. Yet another version of I Want to Be Free.
Our fourth version. There's the album version, there's the pilot version, there's the live version, and now the harp version.
Yeah, so many versions of this. So even the judge and the jury are impressed, and Attila the Hun and Billy the Kid start crying, as do the jurors and the judge and Blackbeard. Everybody's crying. There's one time Peter isn't crying because he's playing the harp, but that would have made it just everything in one episode. So at the end of it, the judge declares Peter not guilty and everybody cheers. Zero snaps his fingers and goes back to... And the judge asks Peter if he knows Melancholy Baby.
Oh, boy.
And that's the end of the story part of the episode. Wraps up there, but we come back for a band performance of No Time in the Rainbow Room.
Tremendous.
Man, look out. What a banger this turns into here.
Yeah.
Mickey's wearing the tablecloth, and it's a super high energy performance. The guys are dancing all around, having a lot of fun. Davey looks like he's wearing the leftover scraps from Mickey's tablecloth, like just a much littler version. There's a reoccurring joke of Mike not getting the dance steps right when they're trying to do some dance steps together, and they look like they're having a real blast. Like they're having a lot of fun doing this.
Good time there, and you may have noticed there's a lenticular version of the point line on the cover of the Blu-ray box set that you yourself have on the way.
Yes. Man,
tremendous.
Just a little side note now. Whenever the box set got brought up ever before, I always was like, oh, box, damn it. But now when it comes up, I'm like, yes, box set. I'm so excited. But anyway.
Yes, guy.
So, yes.
A couple notes about No Time here. It's the last of 5 episodes that feature songs from Headquarters. And the only songs from Headquarters that are featured on the show are No Time and Randy Scout's Get.
Interesting.
And there was also no singles from the album. Like record label wise, the thing where the Monkees play their own instruments, they like kind of downplay it even on the show.
Yep. So yeah, all right. No, yeah, and you're right. It's very weird how they don't lean on Headquarters as much as they could have, really.
Yeah, that probably fed into the compromise on the next album where they got some pros on board and the music itself really kind of tightens up.
Yeah, it really does. And it's like Kirshner, right, who used to be like, yeah, they fired me just so they could stop making hits. And perhaps that is true, but their music got better. You know what I mean? Kirshner was definitely like a record company dude looking for hits and selling records, not a music fan who's trying to like actually make good music that's cool and interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Definitely. And the general vibe of the episode, you can tell it's shot like in early 67 because the boys are very much invested in the show. Like their albums hadn't come out yet. They hadn't got on tour yet. They haven't gone to London yet. They're still very much into the show. And I think once they got back and shot the second half of the season in late 67, I think they were kind of like, okay, it probably felt like going back to work, you know?
I agree. Yeah, it must have been really hard to go from being actors to rock stars and then having to go back to actors when it's like we were just with the Beatles. Like we were being taken seriously and now we're playing a band that no one takes seriously. So, yeah, very interesting.
For real.
So overall thoughts on this episode? Jam-packed with, like, everybody knows this episode if you're a monkey. You just hear the title, and even if you don't recall what goes on, you just recall, like, that's a good one. I remember that being a good
for
one.
real. Because, like, well, it feels like feels like a movie almost, you know? Mm-hmm. And just some of the shots are kind of some of the zooms and stuff. It feels kind of neat. And it's about them being a band, but it didn't require them to do any band stuff. Like, they go on tour with the harp, but you never see, like, Mike holding a guitar just before the shooting of this episode or something like that, right? But it's specifically about music, about them, about a pawn shop full of instruments, and kind of more towards what we like about our Monkees episodes when they actually deal with the boys being a band.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also nice to have like a Peter-centric episode. Like the other guys are there, but Peter's driving it in a cool way. And it's also nice because Peter's not like a dummy throughout this episode. You know what I mean?
No.
He at the beginning he sells his soul to the devil or something, but other than that, it's like he's not. He's cool to see Peter just get to be Peter.
It is, yes, and he is definitely the most sympathetic of the four. That you kind of like feel for them. You're kind of rooting for them to the right things to happen. You know, like right away.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. All right, so some of the categories here: guns, you bet.
Darn tootin'.
After 2 episodes with no guns, it sounds silly, but I'm glad guns are back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that'll be the only quote someone pulls from this episode of something bad. If I ever do something bad, to be like, he has a podcast about how much he loves guns. Highlight of the show. That's tricky. There's many highlights. Highlight of the show for me is when they can't say hell, but say it anyway and have to cover it up. It's a very memorable part.
That is pretty important. But the harp rendition of I Wanna Be Free is pretty darn cool.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good part too.
The whole episode is a highlight of the whole oeuvre.
It is.
Of the MCU. Like, you talk to any Monkees fans, we talk about other episodes being in their top 5. This is in everybody's top 5.
Yeah, it's true. It always makes it in there. Fourth wall break?
Oh, the Mickey says the show's not over yet.
Oh, of course.
They reference them being a show.
Yeah, and he says what's really scary is you can't say hell on television.
Yeah, that whole thing that you just talked about.
I just talked about it. Best musical moment? For me, the Salesman romp. I really liked hearing Salesman.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, classic Monkees moments. There's so many. Davey saying, "Oh," 3 times.
Yeah.
Mike's hat. Guns. Like, so devil chicks. D. Caruso.
Yeah,
What wouldn't fly in 2021? Pretty tame episode. Probably the joke about not being able to say hell on television.
Yeah, for real.
That's the only thing people wouldn't really understand. All right, so now getting into the Did You Knows. This was we've mentioned this before, but this is the 5th episode filmed for the 2nd season. But it got pushed back for a couple reasons. One was the use of Salesman because of the drug reference apparently in it. That's one of the rumors. And Peter Tork said the reason was because they kept saying hell in the show. And even getting covered up, they didn't want people to know what they were saying. So it got put on the back burner.
And the cuckoo bird was on leave for 2 months.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's on sabbatical. Another one, Peter couldn't actually play the harp, but he said with a couple hours of practice, he could have played something simple for the show probably.
I bet he could. He could play the bejesus out of anything.
It's true. Yeah, that is true. I bet you, because of playing the banjo and using all your fingers on strings instead of a guitar, really, like that probably could help.
Yeah. Sure.
This is the last episode where we see Mike's wool hat. We've said before this is the last episode, but it's the last episode they filmed with the wool hat. This is the last time we see it, finally.
There she goes.
Mickey in the courtroom. Shots of him are used in the opening sequence when they're getting the names wrong.
Yes, it's spot that. Yeah.
As soon as you see him sitting there, you're like, I know these shots. And although Roy Bean is known as the hanging judge in real life, he only sentenced 2 men to be hanged, and one of them escaped before it could happen. So, talk about getting saddled with a name. Like, come on, man.
Typecast.
Yeah.
Even in the judicial system.
So Ted DeCorsia, who played Blackbeard, he has 204 credits, and he also played Frank in Monkees Hitting the High Seas.
Okay.
And Billy Beck, he has 134 credits, and he was also in 2 episodes of the new Monkees.
Wow.
Yeah, oddly enough. Peter Cannon, he has 22 credits, and he was also in Monkeys in the Ring. So this is his second appearance.
For sure, that's another Monkey thing, recycling the other characters.
Yeah, for sure.
Actors.
And Lee Kolima, who played Attila the Hun, he has 16 credits, and he was also in The Spy Who Came In From the Cool, and he played the guard in Head.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So there you go. That's what I have for Did You Knows. Well, if you have anything to add, hit me up.
Yeah, like as mentioned earlier, if you spotted it, and you just might be able to spot it if you have the Blu-ray discs on the way. But the newspaper headline, when the Monkees, Harp's a Hit, and all that go flying by, it's the Hollywood Evening Star with the subtitle, "A newspaper dedicated to the losers of the world."
That's right. That came right from the desk of Carouse.
Damn. One last time.
That is funny.
And this is also the last song, the last new song in the Rainbow Room. Like, they'll show us the Rainbow Room shots and stuff later in the season, but this is the last new footage of them in the Rainbow Room. They did a lot of tunes in there, man.
They did. That's why at the end, the interview at the end of that day, they're so exhausted and don't want to be there. Because like, we've been here for 14 hours.
For real. But yeah, that's about it for a super good episode of the Monkees. Definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, fantastic. And speaking of fantastic, it is now time for everybody's favorite second half of the show. The Randomatic Countdown featuring the Woolhat of Mystery.
Bam, that's what they call it.
Sorry, I was shaking up the hat and one of the songs fell out. Do you want that to be the first pick?
It wants
All
out.
right, that's going to be the first pick. Hold on, I'll grab it.
Fair enough.
I'm all tangled up. Okay, last in the alphabet, but first in our hearts, we got Zilch.
Oh, Mr. Davalina, Mr. Bob Davalina.
Zilch, Mr. Davalina, Mr. Bob Davalina, Mr. Davalina, Mr. Bob Davalina.
Zilch, China Clipper calling Alameda. China Clipper calling Alameda.
Zilch,
China Clipper calling Alameda.
Self-defense. Never mind the furthermore, the plea is self-defense. Never mind the furthermore, the plea is self-defense.
It is of my opinion that the people are intending. It is of my opinion that the people are intending. It is of my opinion that the people are intending. It is of my opinion that the people are intending.
Zilch. What do you do with Zilch?
What do you do with Zilch?
So with Zilch, it's funny how the Mr. Dabalina, Mr. Bob Dabalina thing kind of has a life of its own. Like, it was totally covered by Del the Funky Homo Sapien in the hip-hop song.
Mr. Dabalina, Mr. Bob Dabalina, 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 Mr. Dabalina, Mr. Bob Dabalina.
It's funny because people who don't know the Monkees know that and have no idea that comes from the Monkees. Kind of like the Monkees have more hip hop crossover than you'd think with Mary Mary and Mr. Davalina.
Well, here we go.
It's for real.
Grandmaster Flash, and then like a centimeter below the Monkees.
Yeah.
In terms of hip hop pioneers, and then just below the Monkees, Sugar Hill Gang. That's the hierarchy there.
Yeah. But so okay, what do we have to say about Zilch? Zilch seems like a bunch of dudes who have been let off the leash and get to do what they want to do. And
they get to play with the mics. They don't have Kirshner say, "Don't touch that."
Exactly. And they did this thing. Like the thing is, they're in an airport and they heard someone call for Mr. Davalina, Mr. Bob Davalina, and they just couldn't let it go and thought it was so hilarious.
For real.
It's funny. Like they do it in the round. Each guy has a thing to say, and never mind the furthermore, the plea is self-defense. It's coming right from No Time, or vice versa. Who knows which way it went.
But I think that itself is from like Oklahoma or something. I don't know. It's just like 4 weird references that they recognize the musicality of, and just they're 4 beats long, and they just layer them up. And it's just fun listening to Mike kind of lose it and get it back, and it's just so fun.
Yeah, Mickey completely falls apart.
And
they all come in and they say zilch and they hit it, but Mike says zilch and then waits a bar and then comes in. He's the only one who kind of makes you wait for it. But where in the countdown do you think this should go?
I'm inclined to put it in the Peter Percival Patterson's Pet Pig Porky neighborhood of not quite songs, but not quite jellies.
Yeah, I can see that.
Maybe a little higher because it is kind of fun and it kind of means a lot. It even makes an appearance on the old Pull It live review.
Yeah, that's true.
It's our first Zoom show. So maybe we do it. I don't know.
Go one above Peter Percival?
No, maybe a little higher. I was just going to put it maybe... Okay, Teardrop City, above or below?
I was just about to ask you that exact same question. Right before Teardrop City's Let's Dance On.
Yeah.
I would put it, honestly, I'd put it 1 ahead of Let's Dance On.
Okay. Right behind the theme from the Monkees on our list.
Yeah.
10-4. Oh, let's put her there.
Perfect.
That's Zilch, folks. So that's Zilch, written by the 4 Monkees on the album Headquarters.
All right, Jeff.
Pass the hat over here. Since I guess the song decided the last one.
Yeah.
I guess I could grab one now.
The hat decided it.
Okay, that was then. This is now.
There we go. A little high-end Poulet.
Check the chlorine on this one.
Oh, wait. This wasn't even on Poulet, was it?
Oh, no. Yeah, this is on... the
Best of the Monkees.
This is on Then and Now, the Best of the Monkees.
Yeah. So then should this be...
pre-Poulet.
Should this be here?
They had prepared... Because it was technically a single with MGBGT on the B-side.
That was then. This is now. Let me prove my love, girl. I'll make you proud.
That was then. This is now by Mickey Dolenz and Peter Tork, parentheses, of the Monkees.
I've got to say that's a great tune. You know what I mean? Like out of the 80s tunes from the Monkees, I think that's the best one.
It's written by somebody named Vance Brescia, Brescia. I don't know who that is, but it's a good tune. I think it's like after the Changes songs, it's on the box set, on the blue disc, on the mic disc. Mm-hmm. This is the first taste of the 80s Monkees, and those keyboards come in, you're like, oh, what's going on now?
Yeah.
But, it's decent, and those people at the show in the video are having a pretty good time.
Man, are they ever? Like, we, as I'm sure everybody knows, we like listen to the song when we pull it out, and then we talk about it. But with this one, Jeff suggested we do it with the video on, and it's a fun video to watch. Davey's not in it. He hadn't joined back up with the group yet when they shot this video. So it's just Mickey and Peter. But they're just having a great time. And like a couple of the shots, there's a huge crowd there. And it's like, This would have been pre-Pool It, right?
Yeah. It was, get this, it was recorded May 30th, 1986, released June 27th, 1986.
Holy smokes.
So, like, they're probably, because it's it came out as a single. And it's also on Then and Now, The Best of the Monkees, which is like a light blue album. They got kind of colorized faces.
Yep.
Which is, like most Monkees compilations. It's a pretty good compilation. It's got a few previously unreleased tunes, including this.
Yeah. I remember I found that CD at like a pawn shop kind of thing, a used CD store, and that's where I got that one. It's a good tune, I gotta say. I liked it better than I remembered. Or than I thought I would, I guess.
Fair enough. So I pulled this, didn't I? So I get to suggest where we put it. You know what? At number 95, I got Anytime, Anyplace, Anywhere.
Cool.
I might put it right above that because these tunes kind of go together.
Yeah, it's true.
In my mind, yeah. Because, they're both on this thing.
Cool. Ready?
Yeah. You got another tune in that hat, Paco.
Here we go. It's been a big day. Let's see if we can go 3 for 3 in radicalness.
Yeah.
Boom. Can you dig it?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic.
Can you dig it? Do you know? Would you care to let it show?
Can You Dig It from the movie soundtrack Head, also featured in the film itself in a weird little chill out, what are those, hookah festival they get involved with, a bunch of white girl belly dancers.
Yeah, I think for sure. Remember, I think we talked about this in the Gypsy episode back in first season. They probably had a conversation about, like, you know what, if we get a movie going, we're going to spend a day in a belly dancer room for, like, the vaguest of reasons. And maybe we'll do a song that, who knows, but belly dancer room, write it down, man.
Yeah, exactly. And you just tell like, Peter probably whipped this together quick where they're like, hey, we need a song to do. That's why they'll let us do it. And he's like, I got one. He's like, what?
Got one right here.
Yeah, can you dig it?
And the diehards know there's a version of Peter singing it up there.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. Oh yeah, one last thing about the belly dancer room where Mickey and Mike are talking that I sent Davey and Peter for reinforcements, and there's just that quick cut back to the two of them in the belly dancer room.
And they're getting fed grapes. So this one Peter wrote it. All of them sing on it. Mike produced it. It's a really cool, and the bass is awesome in it. The guitars are great in it. It's a really great song, I think, anyway.
It's a great tune. It's good group effort. And, that time, right before Head came out, seemed like it was really artistically quite satisfying and fun.
Yeah,
yep, definitely. Right before Head came out.
Yeah, probably like up until when Head came out. They were like, here we go. Like, because I wonder, probably for them, they probably thought like, well, now we're just going to be a band. Like, we'll do like this movie. It's going to be crazy counterculture, nutty movie we're going to do. Mm-hmm. We're going to keep making this album that goes with it, which is really good and also really out there in some spots. Yeah. And they just weren't, I feel, they weren't embraced the way they thought they were going to be embraced.
No.
And
it's weird. It was their Magical Mystery tour.
Yeah. And
they didn't quite have a Sgt. Pepper. Well, Headquarters is technically their Sgt. Pepper, as far as their most important record. But for Head to not do so good, to put it mildly, kind of killed a lot of momentum. Kind of just the opposite of London '67.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Okay, so where are we gonna place this in the countdown? I'm thinking pretty high up. It's gonna be higher than
I think it might be single digits if I know Paco.
Maybe. See, it might be close to single digits, I would say.
Okay.
I would say I'm going to put it in at number 13, right behind I Love You Better. That's what we'll put Can You Dig It?
So you love, I love you better than Can You Dig It?
Yeah.
By one digit.
Yes, but one...
Just above You Bring the Sun.
Yeah, I love it better than the summer, but not as much as loving you better.
Well said.
Fantastic. Well, okay, that wraps up another episode of Podcast Valley Sunday. A pretty good one, I'd say. The hat was very nice to us. The episode was fantastic.
This is a all-arounder, man.
Yeah.
This is great.
I got to order the box set.
This is a legendary day.
This is a big one. This is a big one. Everybody, remember where you were on this day.
This is it. The rest of this thing, anticlimactic.
Yeah. We're phoning it in from here on out.
Yeah, it's pretty much done.
So anyway, from me, Paco.
And me, Jeff.
Have yourselves a Monkees little evening.
On BluRay.